Live. Okay, we are live. Welcome everybody to Arm Wrestling Showcase number 44. My name is Kane Fontecchio, and I'm joined with a few special guests tonight, and we should have a few more popping in as well. Tonight we have Santino Bravo with us. What's happening? We've also got back Mr. Tommy Heron, uh, listed as Orion there. Definitely one of my favorite constellations. And then we have Mr. Corey Van Meter back on the show. How long has it been, Corey? It's been like, I
It,
feel like almost a year.
yeah. Well, since the show or since practice?
Well, maybe both. Yeah.
Yeah. So since the show, it's been a long time, but since practice, probably, man, I think 4 months ago I went once. Not that I'm not practicing at home, but certainly doesn't make our practices for my new work schedule. So yeah, it's
Right.
been rough.
Okay. Okay. And we have Josh Edwards will be joining us to help me hold this bad boy down in a little bit. I think he had some things he had to tend to. But okay, is that me? Let's see. Could be. Okay, anybody that has YouTube open, just mute that and keep it on Zoom. Let's see. All right, perfect. And we've got a few people in the chat right now. Let's see who we got. Well, we've got one person in the chat. We got the Drew. He said, I said last week that the AW buzz for Paul Italia was just temporary on Tuesday. It's back on Wednesday in 30 minutes too. Oh, so
Uh,
wait, he's doing it 6:30, not 7 or an hour or whatever. Okay, yeah. In 30 minutes, the buzz starts. Okay. Well, yeah, that's part of why we bumped back to 6 is I thought Paul was doing 7. So, we can only do what we can do. We're trying to squeeze in between Derek Smith's show, which was on earlier. It was a really good show. If you weren't there to watch it live, go check that. It was really cool. And yeah, I don't know when the buzz is coming on, but yeah, definitely go check that out as well. Tonight we're talking about a few different topics. The one thing that these guys have in common. Oh, hey, we've got Angel in here as well. What's up, Angel? Good to see you.
Hi.
So one thing that all these guys have in common is they are all California featherweights. And that is one of the big things that's going on in California right now. For North, for South, one of the highlights for that event is going to be the featherweight 145-pound round robin. Everyone will arm wrestle everyone that is competing in that, and we are going to establish a top 10 in California for the Open 145, which we did not have before. And so, for a while now, primarily because I guess we didn't have enough 145s or people under 165 to compete in tournaments. It's pretty much been 165 as the starting weight. But we have noticed in the last year or two, especially this last year on our team, other teams seem to say the same thing, that a lot of featherweights are coming into the sport. And I personally think that's really important because I think there's a lot more it's just a huge part of the population, and I think it's good to have a lot of the featherweights in the sport just because I guess the entire outlook of arm wrestling. I don't know if you guys would agree, but I guess one of the misconceptions about arm wrestling is that it's just a bunch of big, juiced out, like, bar brawling, like people arm wrestling. But yeah, we've got women in the sport. We've got petite women. We've got lightweight men. We've got youth in the sport. And the more that we advocate for those things, I think it helps bring in more people into the sport, from every, I don't know, just every different walk of life, whether you're a computer programmer, or a beautician, or a construction worker, doesn't really matter. And so what the hope is for this, um, we have kind of a tentative goal, right? We're being the test monkeys in 2024 for 2025. So what we're hoping is that, this is a big hit, and after that top 10 is established from this round robin, it motivates more people in that weight class to start calling people out in that weight class for super matches, start showing up more for tournaments, and in turn, showing other small events that we can have a decent turnout for the featherweight class, enough to fill a decent bracket anyways. So right now, just off the hip, we've got about 14, I think. I'm estimating that we're probably going to land on 16. We might be able to get more. I'm kind of hoping for more, because that would be more proof in the pudding. But even if we land at just like 15 or 16, hopefully that will grow. And by 2025, I'm hoping that it kind of snowballs into something, but where by like 2025, major events in California are like, okay, let's do this. Let's do a 145 weight class, open weight class, and we can start including a lot more tournament bracket results to start seeing that weight class fluctuate. Okay, I'm done rambling. What do you guys think about that? Santino, you're one of our vets here. What do you think?
I'd like to go last on that because I want to hear what some of these guys who haven't been on the podcast in a while to see what they're thinking about this.
Okay, I love it. All right, I will start. I'll just kind of go in a circle here. I'll start up here with Corey Van Meter.
I'm just excited that we have something under 155 or even 165. 155 was the best case scenario for me. So yeah, so anything under 165 feels good. So, and I don't know, just being able to compete against people that are even fluctuating weight around there, it feels just so much more comfortable. And I mean, our hands are going to be closer to the same size. Our, we're all closer to the same size, and those things definitely make a difference, right? And so, yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. A lot of these people, it may be the first time me actually seeing you or hearing your names and stuff like that. I know I haven't been into the scene for a really long time, but for the longest time, it's only been me and, if you guys know, little Derek Trong. And so it's just me and little Derek, and that's the only person that I can pull that's even close to my weight class. And so it's been really tough, and I hope that all 14 of those people show up, because I think it would be really cool to learn the different styles. And oftentimes you see in the women arm wrestlers, and I've arm wrestled a lot of them too, because they're closer to my weight and strength and stuff like that. But often when you see the women arm wrestlers, they have really cool techniques that a lot of the men don't possess, or maybe don't need, because they have a little bit more strength. And so I'd be really interested to see the different styles that come out of these smaller arm wrestlers too, that look like win conditions for them. So yeah.
Great points. Yeah, I really like that. And a lot of people do believe that the lighter weight arm wrestlers have more entertaining matches. You do see a lot more technique involved, oftentimes a lot of athleticism. I love watching lightweight matches. So yeah, Corey is one of my teammates. Work has made you unable to come to many of our practices. So let me tell you right now, man. Yeah, you were saying it was just Derek Trong when you first were on with us, man.
Yeah.
We've got a lot now.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
That's good to hear.
there's a bunch just on our team Alpha Empire. And I want to mention one last thing about that. When I say what we have right now listed as 14 names, I believe those are all primarily confirmed for this, but those 14 names are not the only featherweight arm wrestlers we have in California. We do have to consider different things when we're coming up with names to reach out for to do this, because for time, and since we're doing super matches as well, We in that alone, we can't have too many, but there's a lot of unknown factors that will be worked out with it, but we can somewhat decipher who in that weight class is like brand spanking new, who definitely, needs to be in the amateurs or, outwardly wants to be more of an amateur puller. We have a bunch that haven't even competed anywhere before. So we're trying to think of the people that we know that have competed or at least are at a level that could compete in something like this, considering it an open 145 weight class. Part of how that's being gauged is our tippy top guys that we got, like Santino, some of the ranked guys like in the nation. I don't know where you're ranked in the world, but you've got a world championship, don't you? Yes.
Yes.
So we've got guys like that can, on paper, be our top guys for that class. Santino, Danny Dowler, Brandon Ryan is going to be in this thing too. All three of those guys are killers. So this is going to be an opportunity to see where you guys stack up against these guys. But every single one that we're reaching out to, team leaders can attest that, yeah, at their weight, these guys are some pretty proficient and strong arm wrestlers, and that's kind of how we're coming up with this. I only say that to let you know we've got a lot more coming into the sport that will start shaking that up. But just through this crop, as our test monkeys here, that it'll probably draw in a lot more. So let's bounce around the circle here to Angel. So I just saw you, Angel, at Christian's practice that he had on Saturday, and you're feeling strong, dude. That hits nuts. And you did say that you were interested in that featherweight round robin. Tell me what your thoughts are, bro.
Ooh, I have a lot of thoughts. My first thought that comes to mind, finally, like how you
Finally.
guys were talking about how there's a way for 165 when it like I feel like all of us, we don't mind. We'll face the 165ers, whatever. But like how you were saying, it's about time. I feel like all shapes and sizes need their class
Hmm.
to really get the best matches possible. Like me personally, I sometimes I think us lighter guys, we gotta, since we kind of lack, you know, size and mass and strength, we have to make up for with movement, with technique, with speed, with even like your game plan, like before the match starts.
Yeah.
And that's my first thought. Second thought, oh man, I'm fucking excited. I can't wait. I'm really excited because I feel like this was a long time coming for everybody. I feel like we're supposed to be fighting each other, to get better together and to, you know what I'm saying? Like we're supposed to be pulling our where we're supposed to be pulling, if that makes any sense.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That like, and when I met, I appreciate you being a good sparring partner, by the way, Kane. You were really nice to me. 'Cause I know if you
Oh,
wanted to, you could have, but
no, man, that hits scary, dude. It is. Yeah. You got it
yeah,
going
and
on, bro.
I feel like everybody here knows what I'm talking about, and I feel like everybody can agree. And what else do I gotta say? I feel like the best thing would be around Robin, and also I wouldn't mind personally, since we have plenty of time to think about it. How you were mentioning that we have to consider super matches. I wouldn't mind if this was like a 2-day thing, like where we
Ah,
do 1 day super matches and then like the next day we give love to the featherweights and we all fight against one another.
interesting.
So
That
so
could be a
that
possibility. It's
yeah,
it's, it's worth talking about. A big part of me wants to keep it all, and I'm afraid of losing people by separating
yeah,
them, because how many of us are actually going to stay? I know I'll be there, and I hope everyone does. We're planning on an after party, B&Bs and stuff like that. So it would be worth staying the whole weekend. But one of the bits of magic that I loved about North vs. South 1 last year was, man, that was just electric, wasn't it? Like the
Like
whole
it was
crowd,
really good because we mashed it all
everyone
together in a
watching.
one event. Yeah. And there were
Yeah,
all good matches, all of them were good matches. So,
right.
some were ass whoopings, others were close.
Mhm.
And oh bro, I think it's gonna be even better. The second one coming up, I think everybody's gonna be more fuck, can't talk for a second, but I think everybody's just looking more forward to it, if you know what I
Right.
mean. It's just gonna be better, everything.
It
The
will be. And
food.
everyone that has super matches with their they're there with their families. We want them watching. I believe the format will be the round robin first. I don't know if they're planning on saving the finals for later. I think it should all be done at once so nobody gets cold. But yeah, like everyone is going to be watching, getting hyped up. It's going to hype them up, getting ready to do theirs. A big key factor is just making sure that we can do it in an efficient way, to make sure that they're not waiting too long. So we're looking to hope
Yeah,
to make this a focus and fun, but still maybe like within an hour or two to be able to knock it out right and left on
I,
two
I,
two
I feel
tables.
like the featherweights, they should feel there should be like minimal rest time. We should all be feeling pretty beat up once this is over. That's what
Yeah.
I want.
Oh, you guys are going to be trash by the time it's done.
Yeah.
After
Fuck
pulling
it.
will be weird.
Nah, probably not gonna after pull. Maybe lefty, but my right will be
Santino's thinking,
done for
"Oh, I'll
sure.
be fresh as a daisy after this."
Yeah.
He's like, it should be fun.
Okay,
Damn,
we've also got Will Kleeman in the house. What's up, Will? And Drew asks, "Where's Mr. Zebra Pants?" Christian Zepeda, I believe he's referring to. Absolute beast. Christian will not be competing in the featherweight. A lot of you may know some people, some other killers like Santino that could be in this, and names like Chewy, Espindola, I believe is his last name, from the Central Cali team. We've got Christian Zepeda, we've got David Stepanian, even Caleb. Uh, the one thing that all those guys have in common, they're all ranked at in the 165 right now. They don't need to be, and that's their class. That's where they're at right now. I mean, David is number one in the 165. So we all agreed he's fine to stay there. Caleb's up in the top of that list too. There's no reason he needs to drop weight for
If
that.
if Caleb and Will and fucking if they start coming into here, I'm gonna be pissed off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
I
cancel
don't know.
that.
Them dropping 30 pounds might be a big difference. We're catching up.
Yeah, man,
those guys, they got more meat than us. If you
they'd all have to
glance at
drop.
them,
It's
they're
already
more
bad
mass.
that we have
They're
Santino.
yeah,
There's
they're
people
either
that
Would be my
bigger or
they're
last
not,
option.
taller.
if it's somebody that's not ranked and they feel like they can drop, yeah, let us know. Hit us up, message us on Facebook, get a hold of us somehow, and let us know. But yeah, these guys that are
145.
needing to drop that are already in that higher weight, um, they're all fine with that. And in California, you can only be ranked in one class, anyways. So like I like to pull multiple classes all the time, and in California, that doesn't matter. For me, it's just like experience, right? Because 165 is where I would typically be ranked at. So let's keep moving on in that circle. We've got Mr. Brandon. It's Brownfield, right?
Yeah.
What's up, Brandon? So this is the first time we've talked. This is your first time on the show. I believe it might have been Josh that dropped your name for this. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a newer pooler. I just started last year at Patterson, and about 5 months ago is when I really started taking it serious, going to practices, and all the 11 support I've gotten is a huge help. And like you said, for smaller guys pulling in 165, it's nice if you win a medal, but we really don't know where we sit with the rest of the lightweights.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and you must, even though you're new, you must be pretty good or be showing a lot of promise for your name to be thrown out there to do this. Have you, you know what? I'm for all of you guys. I'm going to kind of go around and ask this question, and see how you feel about any of the names. I'm going to run down the list, and Brandon, you tell me if you've pulled any of these and how you feel about this list. So, who we have so far for this is so it's actually it is 15 people. So we've got Santino Bravo, we've got Danny Dowler, Brandon Ryan, we've got Manny from my team, we've got Brian Butcher from my team, we've got yourself, Brandon Brownfield, we've got the brothers, the killers from your team, Santino, Aiden Craig and Nolan Craig. We've got Mr. Tommy Heron, who was here on the show with us. We've got Derek Trung from my team. And like yourself, Brandon, there's a couple names on here who I've not met yet that their names have been put out there. Ricky Chavez and Ricky Rivera. We've got Alden Salazar and Corey Van Meter here, who's on the show, and Angel, who's here on the show with us. So, Brandon, have you pulled any of those names?
Yeah, probably about half of them. I pulled with Danny, Santino, Brandon Ryan, all those guys local. And then when I have an option, if they're at the mega practices, I like to pull with everybody. So if I can't really remember their names, but if I saw a couple faces, I'd probably be able to tell you which one was about which. But I think my best chance is with some of the newer guys. Santino, I don't think I'm there yet. If I even get him off the jump, he has enough side pressure to stop me. But I think Aiden, I've always beat him in competition till the last one. He got me twice, and I took third. He took second. But I'm starting a couple new techniques, and I feel like perfecting those or just getting a better start, I'm going to be going up a lot more than I am right now.
Hmm. Okay. So yeah, so you pulled a bunch of them, and let's just say by North versus South too. I think it'll be more, but let's just be conservative here and say we end up having 16 competitors. Brandon, do you think you have what it takes to get in on the top 10 to be one of our
I do.
ranked pullers? Okay, great. Yep, that's what I want to hear. I want to be able to hear that all of you can do this. So I'm going to keep going down in the circle. It looks like we've got Alden who just popped in here, Alden Salazar. We'll hop over to you in just a minute here. Tommy, so what do you think about that list?
I mean, I pulled with quite a couple of them. Like Corey, did you go to the SoCal Classic?
I did, yeah. I took
Yeah,
second left arm.
second left. I think I've seen you. Did you do right as well?
I did right. How tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
Yeah, you beat me.
I was a tall, lanky dude. I knew you looked familiar.
Yeah, you
And
you beat
that's how
me
it's gonna
right.
be. I'm gonna be this weird stick figure out of the whole bunch of people in
Yeah,
this whole
Tommy.
entire thing. I got no legs. I'm a
Yeah,
pure arm wrestler at this point.
Yeah, I
people give
remember
me
you.
crap, Tommy, for being like 170 or 165 at 6'2". What's your walking around weight right now at 6'2"?
Low 150s.
Gosh, and your arm is about, I want to say probably a good 2 inches longer than mine from fingertip to elbow.
Oh no,
Uh
I got
Tom,
it's about 16, 17 inches from my elbow to my fingertips.
anybody that hasn't pulled Tommy here, Tommy's going to be a tough one to deal with. Definitely.
It's weird. It's definitely not something I'm like super experienced in as well. And so I remember gripping up. I remember my hand was like it was just in a totally different position than I'm usually used to. So yeah, I definitely remember you. That'll be fun. We'll run that one back.
As long as that one guy Moses doesn't show up, I think I should do pretty good. Moses,
Is
man,
yeah. Do
he
you know
showed up
where
to one
he's
of the grinder
weighing?
tournaments. He just No contest. He's just crazy strong. He's basically like a lighter Christian Zabeta. Just
Yeah, he was
immediate
the one with
press.
the sweatpants, right? Did he
I
take
don't know, but
did he
he always
take
set up like
first?
this. Like
Yep,
he'd just
yep,
be
yeah, yeah.
looking straight up, wouldn't
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at you.
I
Man, he was
remember.
intimidating. I had no chance against him.
I didn't get to pull him, but I watched his pulls, and yeah, that was pretty. He even I'm afraid of Manny. I don't know if you guys have pulled Manny, but
Oh yeah.
He's got a really interesting way of pulling too. And yeah, I'm afraid of Manny a little bit. And I watched that kid that you're talking about, Moses, versus Manny, and I was like, oh no.
Mm. Yeah, Manny's gnarly. He's got a lot of potential, but so do you, Corey. It's just I haven't practiced with you in a little bit, but I remember your day one. I was like, okay, this guy sticks it out. He's gonna be good. He's gonna be good. So let's. Oh, wait, Tommy. Do you think you have what it takes to land in the top 10 and be one of the California ranked pullers at one?
Top 10, I'm gonna be one. What are you
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Number one? All right. All right. I love it. I love it. Even better. Even better. Okay, well, let's move on down to Alden Salazar. How's it going, Alden?
Good, Kent. Hey, thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Oh, you got it. You got it. So, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How you got into the sport, what team you're on?
Yes, so I just started arm wrestling around 5.5, 6 months ago. I would say late or early November-ish. I got introduced to Josh from Nowheretorun Arm Wrestling. From I don't know if you're familiar with River Welch. He's
Mhm.
one of my teammates now. So that did introduce me to Josh and the whole team at Nowhere to Run. And ever since then, I've been training with those guys. They're just getting better from there on. And yeah, I'm really excited for this 145-pound weight class. I mean, as soon as I heard it, I was just like, oh yeah, I for sure have to compete because I'm walking around, mid 150s usually. I'm pretty lean throughout the year, so I was like, I have a good shot at this, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I competed in two tournaments, the one in LA and then the one in Ripon. But that was here in NorCal because it was a little closer by. And then I'm gonna compete in the one coming up in Santa Clara. So yeah,
Cool. Right on. Wait, you said Santa Clara?
Yeah,
yeah, in
April
Santa Clara.
20th.
Oh,
Yeah, April.
right. Okay. Yes, yes. All right, right on. So, the names on the list that I threw out there, have you had a chance to pull, even practice pull with any of these names?
Yeah, so my first tournament in LA for the Fit Expo, I think
Mhm.
I pulled one of your guys, Manny. I think it's Manny something. I forgot his last name, but yeah, I pulled that dude, and I wasn't ready for it to be honest. So he got me off the jump for sure.
Yeah.
I'm excited to pull him again. I'm familiar with most of the guys from the north just because I'm kind of situated here.
Mhm.
But I had the chance to pull Twig numerous times. I
Okay.
actually had a match with him in a Ripon. Um, I think I got lucky, but I was able to beat him and eliminate him from the 165 class.
Okay.
And then afterwards, there was just a big meeting with the NorCal teams here in Turlock. Mike McGraw's, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mhm.
But there was a bunch of guys my weight, including I think Brandon Brownfield was there. Yeah, I pulled that guy, very strong. And then Twig was there as well, River, and then Alwyn, Caleb Armbender, those guys came over, and I practice pulled with them a bit. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. So for those watching that don't know who Twig is Brandon Ryan, one of the competitors on this. Twig is his nickname. Yeah, it sounds like you pulled a few people, and Brandon's a tough one too. Did I know Brandon Ryan? I don't know you too well, Brandon, but if you've been endorsed by Josh, then I would imagine you must be pretty good. And yeah, Alden, Nowhere to Run. What a great team to be pulling with, man. Um, how's that been coming into that team?
Well, the first time it was a little bit scary just because all the guys are way bigger than me.
Mhm.
Most of my
Okay.
training partners are around 200 plus, easily. And then the only few guys that are in my weight are already really strong when I got there. So River, he was really good. He had good hand control, good technique, and whatever. And then I think I had two other guys in our weight, but one of them kind of took a hiatus, so he's a little bit bigger now. So basically, it's just me and River close to the same weight, but I'm probably the lightest guy in that team.
Mm.
So I've been getting much stronger since then, just because I've been training with all these really strong big guys. I also learned a lot of technique just from Josh because he's a mastermind in arm wrestling. He's pretty smart.
Yeah.
He knows what he's talking about. So I listen to him and I kind of get tips from him and ask him whatever I have problems with on the table, and just kind of figure it out. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sweet. And if you're in to do this thing, I'm just gonna assume that you believe you can make that top 10, right?
Yes, of course, yes.
All right, right on. Okay, so we went around. Santino, you wanted me to start with all of them. Uh, excuse me. Let's hear some thoughts. The round robin in general. What are your thoughts on this whole Mamma Jamma?
Well, first, I think it's really cool that some of the lighter guys are finally going to be showcased, to have a little arena of their own to where it's like, okay, this is something I can do. But it's also interesting because, we call it a featherweight 145, but even in this smaller weight class, there's still a big discrepancy in weight because we got some guys 150, 150s low, going to make that cut to 145. And then we got some guys that are like 120, 125, 130 that are like still pulling up 115s and that are
Yeah.
pulling up. So
Yeah. How much do you weigh, Corey?
I just weighed in at 113. Yeah.
Good God. Oh
so
boy.
it's still, a big discrepancy for some of us. And for others, it's like, okay, this is where I walk around. So that's still going to be interesting there. But obviously, a lot of the lighter guys that stick around in the sport, because that's when the big thing is. A lot of just leave the sport because it's no fun. It's not even about winning. It's just like you stand no chance in a competition. In practice, it's just one guy just holding and saying, "Wow, you're pretty strong for your size and weight," like a little pat on the head, like "good job." And it's like, okay, get the real arm wrestlers here. So it's like it's very discouraging when there's like I can't even test myself against my equal. I have no peers, so they end up just leaving the sport because, especially when you start competing and you're like the results before it even begins. It's over. It's not even a matter of you trying hard enough. There's like no technique that's going to overcome that huge difference. But for the guys that do stick around, obviously they're killers, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the round robin, I think that's awesome that there's enough to fill out this class. And because there's like 15, 16 and the discrepancy weight, there's multiple guys in 120s that are here now. There's multiple guys in the 130s. There's multiple 140s, one low 50s. So there's a whole bunch to where you're going to get a matchup with someone that is relative to you one way or another. And you're going to be able to test yourself against guys that are a little bit bigger, but are still within like, pun intended, arm's reach to beating and climbing. So that's awesome. I love that. Now, in terms of the whole 145 rankings, I think it's interesting. I've already expressed my opinions on the weight classes for California, so I don't feel it's necessary to go over
I
there.
mean, for some of us, like in the lower weight classes too, the worst case scenario out of all of this is you pull the closest guy you've ever pulled before. That's the
Right.
worst case scenario. Like, like meeting up with all these people around all of California, and whether they're new or whether they're like 2 years in, 1 years in, or veterans, like I've never had the opportunity to pull guys that I could give my full strength and they could give their full strength. And the first thing I'm thinking is not how hard the back of my hand's going to hit the other pad, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It is a good feeling when you place in the 165 as a lighter guy, though, beating all the 165s makes you feel like you actually belong sometimes.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
there's certainly that. Yeah. That's one of the aspects, that being closer to like one of the cusps of the weight classes, it would be really fun to be able to bounce in those ways. And kind of I mean, we saw like we see like heavyweights do it with like middleweights or light heavy to heavy and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's one of the best places you can be, is like right on the cusp, because either way you're proving yourself really well or you're fucking beating everybody.
Right. Right. Yeah, and those that have been forced to compete in the 165 open, uh they've had to overcome so much. The ones that have actually stuck out, it's not just being extremely talented and smart or technically savvy. You got to have that resiliency, I think, and willingness to take a lot of losses to get there and be okay with that and learn and get better and better and better. And that's a really tough road. So for that reason, I think, yeah, having an opportunity to pull all of you together that can be at 145 and below, it can not only give you guys more opportunities to pull and compete with each other more. I think it will level all of you up. I think it'll make it more feasible for more of you to grow and get stronger, and easier to maybe even be competitive at a 165 class if that's what you wanted. But a lot of people believe, I personally believe that tournament experience, real competition experience goes so much farther than practice. I mean, they're different. It's kind of a tough thing to say, but it's just worth so much. And be it a win or a loss. And so if you guys can get the opportunity to compete more with each other at this weight class, I figure it can only do good things, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Back when I was talking about the weight class, it's going to be interesting because no other state does a 144, or even what we have set up here, 45, 65, and so forth. And tournaments, I don't know what in California they're going to be running because for NorCal, we're doing for the next one, Santa Clara's 54, 76, 98, 220, 242, 242 plus. And we'll probably do that for, depending on how that goes, how those brackets fill out, continuing further down. So I don't know what Bill is going to do for his classes coming up because there is enough to build a lightweight class at whatever weight he wants to set because there is that group of guys. So it's going to be interesting going forward in terms of rankings, how it's going to track. Because if like the lightweight is 165 for this tournament, how are the 145s going to keep track of the rank? Because some of them, like are in the 150s or low 150 that might not make that cut because it is a 165 tournament. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out going forward. So that's something interesting. But like you're saying about in the tournaments, like for lightweight guys getting stronger, just pulling those is just a little anecdote. What I did when I started, I did both open and amateur from the jump, and I pulled as many weight classes as I can. I basically, like any tournament, I pull as many classes as my wallet will allow. Just because when I started, it's like, well, there's no difference between the amateur and pro. I'm getting crushed regardless. So I'm going to go in and gain that knowledge that just for that split second after go, it's like, okay, what can I learn from that? So that's for me how I started to develop and gave me a goal, because it's like I'm not winning any of these. I'm not placing in these. I'm not going to have a competitive match, but I'm just gaining little bits of knowledge so that by the time I do get stronger, it's all going to come together. So that's what I encourage for a lot of guys who, don't feel they have a chance in any of these things, just to take that and go with it and just pull as many as you can, because you're going to learn regardless.
It's not even, yeah, and I would add to that, it's not even like the 1 second of pulling that you get. Like I've learned so much, and like pulling tournaments to 165s just out of the setup, how they set up, how they're like manipulating the strap if you have a strap, or how they're not, or how they're trying to set up their own hands, knowing what kind of pullers they are, and then seeing them try to get that advantage before the go has been really, really beneficial to me, even if they're outside of my weight class, because we're not like super loading in the setup to where, he can push my hand to one side. So I'm trying to figure out where they're trying to gain that advantage. And if they're on your team, luckily, like somebody like ET, where I set up with him, obviously I'm not going to beat ET, but I can understand what kind of puller he is, where he's comfortable, and what he's trying to get out of a setup, right? And so if he knows where he's comfortable and where he can't lose, that's where he's going to try to set up to get a later. And so if I'm a similar puller, or if I'm trying to avoid that, I'm trying to negate all of that. And so I'm learning from those little things even before the pull.
Absolutely. Amazing. Yeah, that's all true, Corey. And Santino, what you mentioned about, knowing that you weren't at one point going to win, and you were primarily focused in advance and getting what you could out of that and learning. I believe that is the strongest ingredient there that has, you know better than me, but I'm willing to guess or wager that that was one of the strongest ingredients that led you to where
Oh,
you are right now.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I've
Yeah.
got some bad news for all of you. Don Mormon, who just jumped in here. I mean, he is the lightest competitor in the call right now. But you're all going to have to face him in the round robin. Don, your walk around weight is like 133 pounds, right?
Now it is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm wishing you all luck. Uh, I'm so
I
happy you
keep it.
kept your face so straight, like for so long on that.
I could do
Moved
it.
on and Sherlock. He just destroyed me.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
That's funny.
Don's an absolute monster at 175. How you doing, Don? It's been a while since we had you on. How you been?
I'm doing okay. Doing all right. Hanging in there.
Good, brother. Yeah, yeah, I noticed from the
I
pictures.
I like that you guys are talking about lighter weight classes just because it's it's just making it to where people get to get out there and be in their lane, you might say, instead of when they know they're competing against heavier or this or that. When you're doing that so much, you really don't know where you're really at in your own lane. So I think if that lane exists, then we'll know. I mean, you got to have it for everybody to see what's happening. And if it's not there, you just don't know. Really, it's kind of messed up a little bit. But if it changes, then that's great. I mean, I think that with more interest, and if you make it available, I still think that you're going to have more people show up too, because there are people that won't show up because they don't want to go against a heavier or a different lane. They just don't want to do it. I don't know. I think when they know they're going against you might say their peers and people of equal stature or whatever weight, it just makes them feel that much more comfortable to compete and know that they have that chance. I don't know. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, well said. For me, dude, this is like gonna be
Yeah,
so exciting to watch as a
right.
spectator. I'm gonna enjoy watching the 145 round robin, I'm sure, more than any of the super matches. And for me, what it is the unknowns, all those unknown factors, to see how this plays out. We're talking about a crop of talented arm wrestlers that haven't really been given this opportunity here in the
Right.
state, and if they want that opportunity, they've got to, really pony up and go to like nationals or something like that and leave the
Right.
state. So yeah, this is going to be super exciting, but it's also it wasn't decided out of thin air. It was decided because we're starting to see at these tournaments, at practices, so many more featherweights. We're starting to
Yeah.
see more youth, which is important. We're starting to see more women. I'd still like to see a lot more women coming into this sport, enough that we can make more weight classes for them at California tournaments as well. I understand it from the promoter standpoint. If one or two are going to show up, like what do they do with that in terms of weight class? But if we can get more, that changes a lot. I was watching Neil Pickup's show recently, and yeah, I think it was the most recent episode, and Coach Ray and Paul Lynn were talking a lot about the influx
Mhm.
in arm wrestling in the last couple years. These are all guys that have been around it for a little while, and to hear that from their perspective, it's important. They're like, hands down, dude, this thing has grown and created more opportunities in the sport than there has been. Their spectatorship for it. And I found it to be a really cool episode. If any of you haven't seen it, go check it out. because I was also seeing some contrast between that and another topic they were talking about, which is talked about a lot, but the difference between European or Eastern arm wrestling and the Western. And guys like Ingen saying that, it started here in North America, and we were kind of like the world, the world level to kind of base things off of. But then before too long, the world level ended up being in the East, and now we're needing to catch up with them. And what I found to be really interesting, there's different outlooks as to why that is. Things like a lot of them get like paid to arm wrestle out there. Some countries it might be like actually brought up in schools. Stuff like that is taken very serious out there, whereas we don't really have uh, means to really get paid by our country for it. We don't really have it in schools yet. However, what I'm noticing is in the States is where it seems to be blowing up the most. When, they were talking about things like how we've got a lot of small tournaments versus in the East, you might have 2 tournaments in any one of the top countries. They've got their nationals, they might have something else. And they're just these huge tournaments. Everyone shows up for them. They all go to their worlds. They go to WAF. But here we've got in a lot of states, you can find a tournament not too far away every week, where, and that to me, that's a great sign. There's been a lot of talk about division thing, where we've got different nationals, not a lot of unification, a lot of just different small random tournaments. But at this point in time, it seems like it's also kind of the best thing. If no one's going to pay us to do what we're doing here, and there's not a ton of sponsors getting involved, it's not something we've integrated into schools yet. It's kind of a backdoor method. The sport is just because of how many events, how much social media, how much media in general is coming out of North America with the sport. To me, I feel like it's just building it up more, building that platform up bigger and bigger to where in our own way, we can, start to catch up a little. It would just be in a different way. And I'm hoping that that results in more arm wrestlers being able to go compete at Worlds and overseas, because that's one thing without a doubt that I agree with what they were talking about, is that the level's so high over there because so many of them are going to compete at Worlds. And many people that do compete at Worlds will tell you it's different. It's a different level. Your lowest person, is going to be, like, to us, a very, very heavy hitter. And surrounding yourself with that regularly and competing at that level regularly is probably going to advance you very quickly. So if we can build up more here and start seeing more of our arm wrestlers going out there, it would be a long road. But those are my thoughts. Let's go around and see what you guys think in terms of like where we're at versus the East. Corey, what do you think?
Yeah, I think some of the things that you said about the funding and just like just bringing finances into it makes it a little bit more of a sport and less of a pastime. I think that a lot of people just kind of treat it as such. But I will say, hearing from a lot of other places around the United States, we're incredibly we're in a really good place in California to have all these places near us that we can actually practice with people that are actually enthused. Because hearing from some of even the Florida guys, which is, Florida arm wrestling's pretty big as well, but hearing from some of them, just hearing how organized we are from them is pretty, it puts us in a pretty good place to be that next swing of the gauntlet that takes out some of the Easterners. So I would be really interested to see once it gets a little bit more exposure, or maybe even WAF coming back, or whatever it's going to take in the next couple of years to get a little bit more money infused into the sport. I think that's the only thing that can possibly change it right now, until we figure something out, because just like everybody else, if you can't treat it like a job, then you're not going to work hard at it. And I think that in the East, they've been able to treat it like a job in some instances. So
Totally. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? You guys can just jump in, chime in. What do you think?
So my biggest thing is I have a lot of friends that I talk to about the sport, trying to get them involved with something at least physical to keep them in shape or motivated. I feel like a lot of people are afraid of arm wrestling because they feel like they're just so far behind. And I feel like, especially in California, that's the biggest thing I've heard from people is either for the women's division, I don't want man arms, which if you ever seen Tara, she's very feminine and she just is a monster on the table. So, just getting past those hurdles in the United States of, it's not too late to actually start. My dad started in his 40s and before he got hurt and took a break, he got his first pro tournament was second, and first was Nick Pastel. So, he was, in his 40s starting winning. And I think if he didn't get hurt, he'd do so much better. But, just getting past that, you're not too old or you're not too weak to start.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest differences between here and Europe is the attitude and perspective of the sport. Here, it's very much, kind of a hobby, still kind of that, backyard garage type feel, versus overseas, it's more structured. Sort of like how last week when I was talking about my practice, like when I'm watching practices from overseas, all of them, it's training like any other sport. You got however each team wants to program it, what have you. Versus here, it's still very much laid back, which isn't a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing for people who just take it as a hobby or something. But I joke around a lot at practice sometimes. Like when I think about it, arm wrestling is like one of the only sports I can think of where participants are like actively drinking while doing that sport. Now I'm thinking like, imagine like someone's like playing basketball, but they're like half drunk on the court, just like falling around. So it's neither here nor there. I have no problem with it, but it's just one of those things that I find interesting about how we approach it and our attitudes versus overseas. So I hear a lot, well, in Europe, they're paid for this. They're government sponsors, in which some of that's true, but I also don't think it's that true at all. Because I've heard Giannis say that they don't, like Giannis, they're not getting paid for this. Is still like, quote, like amateur in terms of like they're not actively getting paid by these, or what payments they do get is like minimal. It's not like sustaining. It's just that attitude of this is a sport and I'm going to treat it like that.
I guess so I think that I was probably wrong in saying that, because I actually never made this connotation. But if you compare it to other like combat sports, even if it's like Muay Thai or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, those people are doing that. They're being competitive, but they're not like, these people aren't doing it usually to sign up for tournaments, and they're certainly not doing it for money, right? And so they have huge followings in Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and both of those I've done for years, right? And never once was I like, I'm doing this because there's a funding for it or because this is a large sport. And so I guess there is a little bit of a hole in my logic on that one. And so there's got to be a bigger difference that makes someone maybe not take this as serious as other sports, or maybe it's just not as organized as other sports in that way. And that was funny that Santino brought in the drinking part, but that kind of plays into it, right? Like I couldn't have done that at my other sports that I was competitive in, and I would have gotten like I always had coaches as well. So do we need to organize better to where we're structured in like a coaching situation, or will that push people away to the point where they're like, you know what, I don't want this much structure. I do this to pass the time, or I do this to have fun. And I don't need a coach telling me what I'm doing wrong all the time. I just kind of want to pull. I think there's a weird balancing act that that arm wrestling fills in our culture right now, at least when it comes to the people that aren't competing at the highest level, where they kind of do it to have that camaraderie and to have like that feeling of like everybody's here for the same thing and we're all having fun. And they kind of treat it more like going to the bar and eating peanuts than they do going to the gym and trying to like better yourself or learn new techniques and things.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act because everyone has different goals or wants in the sport. Obviously, like climbing from like entry level to like pro level to like international world class, that's a huge like people might not want to make that commitment. Like the last podcast I brought up, some people treat practice and stuff like a pickup game at the park. You know, they're gonna break a sweat, they're gonna get after it, they're gonna have some fun, which I think is a good thing because you want those people like your average viewer to be active participants in some manner because that's just going to keep that retention going. So, and I think it's a balancing act. And I think it's also like, it seems like the new generation of polars that are coming in are looking at it more as a sport, something that they can be competitive in, take seriously, keeps them active, keeps them social, and it's a lot of fun. Versus, prior generations, they were active, they were competitive. Then it kind of popularity died down a little bit, so it took a backseat. Well, there's no tournaments going on. We're not going to international, so we might as well just relax because we enjoy the sport and just have fun with it. So it's interesting now that, like we're saying, more and more practicers are popping up. They're more frequent. More tournaments are coming on. So more people are starting to take this more seriously as a professional sport, despite not being paid. Because obviously, yes, nobody here has made much money, if any at all, especially not when you can compare to how much we spend in tournament fees, gas money to get there, hotel rooms, Airbnbs, flights, all that compared to like what, a little participation medal. But it's because we really enjoy the sport, and these medals, these things mean a lot to us because of all the time and effort we put into them.
Right. I would be interested to hear from like the more tenured people like Don and Kane to see like over the years, do you feel like we're in a valley and we're about to reach a next peak? And do you remember the last peak that you were at before we entered into this valley?
Don, field that one. You've been in the sport a lot longer than me. Oh, yeah, you're muted.
Don's only 23, man. He just started.
Let me see if I can help you unmute. There we go.
How about now?
Yeah, man.
We good?
Yeah.
When it comes to the tournament and payback and that type of thing, I kind of still, because I did the bass tournaments, the fishing tournaments. Okay, when it comes to entries and that type of thing, those really do pay a lot more because the entries are a lot more. When we're paying $30-$40 entry, you can't expect unless it's sponsored. Otherwise, they would go based upon entries, where 1 in 5 would cash a check. And with that 1 in 5, you're still looking at, even though it would be if it was a team type deal, even if you split that in half, your entry fee would still be around 150 a head. So it's 150 a head, and that's still far more than what we pay. And then they're still having to travel, pull a boat, gas, all that type of stuff too. So when it comes to that, if the entries were higher, your payback would go higher. And sometimes the higher payback draws more people too. But if you could get sponsor involved, that could help that out. That always can help that out. But again, the entry fees are low. At least that's what I always thought. There's not a lot of people that can even afford it as it is to do the travel. And then you add more entry fee, that might even scare some arm wrestlers away. So I'm not quite sure where the balance is there, I guess. I know for the bass guys, it seemed like, around 250, 300 was about what was what was good for their entry and their paybacks and that type of thing, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think the local small tournaments where you're primarily going to get some experience, there's nothing wrong with the whole $30, $40 entry. But
Right.
I do agree with you, Don, that at least for the bigger events,
Right.
where they're intended to bring out, the heavier hitters and more competition, that yeah, that entry fee can go up, but to make sure that payout comes up too. I know there
Right.
are
But
promoters
yeah,
that'll raise that up, but keep some pretty minuscule payouts as well.
it just seems like it's stayed the same or just not as much. Not, it's kind of got stagnant, you know, where it's always been about the same, you know. Um,
With
you didn't
payouts.
see, yeah, with payouts, you didn't, you're really not seeing much more than, a couple 300 for your wins and that type of thing. And the guys that were actually getting a decent check, was like John Brzenk, and he's taken 3 weight classes or something, and he's now making $1,000 for the night. So he's actually getting something out of it, but he's really busting his butt to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, outside of payouts, a little bit of perspective I want to add to it in terms of like the sport then versus now, and East versus West and stuff like that,
Mm.
is kind of resorting back to what you were talking about, Santino, is that large part of the population that isn't really interested in competing. They're interested in going out and having fun. They're
Hmm.
probably watching arm wrestling more than they're ever competing. To me, that like they're one of the hugest values to this sport right now. They're extremely, just seeing that in general is a very important sign, I think, of the times and what's to come. It shows that the sport's growing. It shows that there's spectatorship, and that like the average person finds this sport interesting enough to go and just hang out and like have a beer and arm wrestle with people. That's something that they consider fun, versus it seems that before this whole revolution in the sport, that if you were arm wrestling, like you were probably unless it just happened to be at a party or something like that, you weren't like going to a team practice and like just to have fun. You were usually showing up to a tournament, and you were probably pretty good, and you were you know arm wrestling to compete. Now we've got this whole other thing uh building the sport up. And I really do think that is a sign of money coming in, and referring to what you were talking about, Corey, and sponsors and stuff like that. That yeah, the more we see people that are spectators coming to the sport, that find it interesting, something that's fun to do, and more people doing it, then yeah, that's a sign that sponsors can come into play. I also am willing to wager, I'm wondering a little bit. So yes, the East is like at a higher level than in a broad spectrum. We've got some killers that can obviously compete with them, but in the broad sense, they're at a higher level. They're more serious than us as a whole. Uh, but I'd be willing to wager what's happening over here is not only going to help them over there, but it's going to help bring the whole sport up and start introducing sponsors and stuff that were not there before. Because if you think about it, okay, let's say the whole world, like us here in the West too, was kind of operating in the same way they are. Let's think of it more of like a conservative, like Olympics kind of thing. Very serious. This sport is all about competition. I feel like there would be a big gap, a big separation between competitive arm wrestling and the rest of the world. And it would probably be a little bit more boring to your average person or viewer or something like that. And it's kind of like what's happening over here is the building of a catalyst for something so much more, where we can start, potentially comparing the format more to other combat sports like UFC and stuff like that. Because I mean, look at what makes those sports so successful and how they operate. It's not so much about like expecting the rest of the world to care. Like if everything was like unified and whatever, and we knew who like the top one and two people were, and like we're all supposed to care in that very conservative world platform that, you know, they're going to arm wrestle for number one, or what the top 10 is. To me, like where the money and the sponsorship is going to be is once the sport is so popular, the arm wrestlers themselves are so popular, they want to see what happens in a super match between Tommy Heron and Angel Castro, just because, they might not be the best in the world, but they might be really good. They might be really good, and their styles coming together. There might have been a lot of talk between, we've got to see these guys arm wrestle. Kind of like a lot of what you see at King of the Table. When we saw the Whisperer versus Odd and Larrett, they're fan favorite matches we want to see. They might not make a lot of sense, like on paper. They might not be the best in the world, but people will buy that pay-per-view just because they want to see ET and Auden arm wrestle. They want to see Brandon Allen and Larry Wheels arm wrestle and see who wins. To me, that's kind of like the future that's going to start bringing in, the money.
The amateur classes have been huge that I've seen.
Oh
There's
my
a lot of
God.
people. I
Yeah.
mean, and they're having a lot of fun, and they're pretty exciting. And I can see where, I don't know, there might be a lot of people that they have no desire to even go pro. They'll just hang out there in amateurs and have fun. And
Yep.
that's cool too, because those guys are pulling it like hell, just like everyone else. Again, it's kind of that lane type of thing.
Yeah.
And if that's where they're good, that's where they're good. But that needs to be not brushed under either, or disregarded, because that's a big base of people that are involved.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. As a matter of fact, the entire thought or epiphany to do on 145 round robin um occurred at UAL amateurs. Watching, I stayed an extra day to go watch the amateur competition on the Sunday, and I was blown away. Like that class, that lightweight class for amateurs was so stacked. And, it wasn't just the numbers that I saw, how many, I think there was like 25 or more of you, at
About
least.
that 24, I think.
Okay, yeah, it was unreal. But the thing that stood out the most to me when I
That's
was
a
watching
class.
guys, yeah, was I was looking at you guys pull, and I know a lot of you, I've pulled with a lot of you. I was thinking, man, these guys shouldn't even be in amateurs. They should be pulling an open, but in a featherweight class.
Right.
There was just so much of a scatter of levels. Some were new, but there was a lot of people there that I was thinking, man, like this, they need another, they need another platform. They need to be able to pull
Right.
um open. Yeah, yeah, it was unbelievable in that weight class. Amateurs was just ridiculous. It was just stacked, like way more than the other weight classes from what I remember. Well, let me catch up here a little bit in the chat. Will Klingman says, I weigh 160 and about to die of starvation. Will was actually trying to yeah, Will was trying to get up in weight. He's trying to go up in weight. So I think when you were joking earlier about Will coming into the 145 round robin, yeah, like he's not even interested in 165s anymore. He's been wanting to move up in weight. Man, Will, we need to hang out. I need to feed your ass, man. We need to get some calories in you. And we've got Mike Linder in the house, my teammate. Mike says I could pull 154 in a day's notice. I'm sure you could, and it kind of pisses me off. But yeah, we're more talking about the 145s though. So and there was this whole conversation about should it be a 154 round robin? But there was a lot of things to take into account. If we were to do a 154, we felt that we'd have to change all the weight classes and do something that resembled more of the other states' weight classes. So it would jump from 154 up to, I believe, 172 or something like that. Then it goes up to around 190 and so forth. But that would be undoing something that has been going on in California and would have to involve veterans of the sport that run events and everything like that in changing something just, you know, maybe a lot to change right away. So instead, we decided to, yeah, keep it in line with what it is right now, which runs in 20-pound increments, 165, then up to 185, then to 205. So a step down from 165 would be for 145. And the benefit also to doing that is that it's, you know, like you said earlier, even at 145, there's still a big spread in there because we got our Corey Van Meters at 113 pounds. So if we only drop down to 154, I don't think it would be accomplishing too much. It would help a little bit, but the 154 makes a little bit, or 145 makes a little bit more sense. Mike Linder says, staying in the lighter classes, it caps some of the juice that can be squeezed into them, I think, unless you're starting at 110 pounds. I'm trying to wrap my head around that a little bit. What do you guys think about that statement?
I don't know. I was about 140 a month and a half ago, and now I'm up to 152, right when I heard about the 145, which was frustrating, but I feel a little bit more power, but I feel like the strength wasn't a huge deal for me. It was speed. I got slower with size.
Yeah, yeah.
So that hurt me so much more than just strength.
Okay.
Yeah, if I were to dissect that too much, I'd say like what he may have meant by that is like, unless you're 110 pounds and going up to the 154 mark, you're not going to have huge bouts in strength. Where if it's like what we're seeing in some of the like open classes, like you could be anywhere between 300 and 450 pounds, and that's going to have a huge impact. So I think what he was saying is like, it makes it a little bit more fair because there's going to be less of a gap between the strength differences, unless that person's starting at extremely low biologically, which is just very rare, and going up to like a monster amount, whether he meant like actual steroids or not, but I don't know.
Right.
That's how I took it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and that all definitely makes sense. And Mike, you better not try to come down to the 145. I believe you're ranked right now in 165s, aren't you? We got Tara Terry is in the house. What's up, Tara? Good to see you here. And we just had popping in as a guest, we've got Mr. Danny Dowler. What's up, Danny?
Hey guys.
All right, so yeah, this is one of the gentlemen that all y'all's boots need to be shaking at least a little bit. Danny's definitely a tough one to deal with. Let me go around a little bit. Alden, if you're still there, I'd love to hear if you've ever pulled Danny. Angel, have you ever had the opportunity to pull Danny?
Fuck, I can't remember.
Okay. All right. Well, Danny
I
is
don't know.
very strong, and you don't want to get caught in that cup, man. He's a beast. So he's
Yeah.
definitely one of the ones that everyone will be kind of gauged off of. So yeah, a lot of you that are coming in that are relatively new, seeing where you stack up with guys like Danny, with Santino, with Brandon, is going to be really interesting. You know, it's going to tell you a lot. And what a cool opportunity for you guys to all be able to pull each other and around everyone pulls everyone. Because not only you're still going to get a chance to pull, but if there's somebody that might be at a different level, or if you take a loss, you're going to get so much from it. So much. Yeah, I love the opportunity. I'll even go out of state to pull somebody I know is going to whoop my ass, just so I could know. I could know what that feels like, you know. Then you go home and then you go get better. We've got Alden coming back in. You know, go ahead. What were we gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say, I think I think you learn most when you lose, to be honest, because when you win, if you keep winning, you're like, oh, it's working. You know what I mean? Whatever you're doing.
Yep.
But when you lose, then you have to like look back and see like why you lost and what
Mm,
happened. But yeah, you know, y'all know what I mean. But all right,
yeah.
continue. My bad, I interrupted you as well. Your
Well,
turn.
one of the hardest things to do for I think a lot of people is watch their losses back. See, easy for some, but yeah, like because it's one thing to lose and like think back like what happened and really assess that. But you really do get a lot when you watch yourself back losing, man. It's tough to do, but I highly recommend it. You know, you see yourself doing
Yeah,
that is like you didn't really realize was happening.
It'd be
I think it's
interesting. Do we have like?
important though.
Oh, I'm sorry, Angel. Go ahead.
Oh no, you first, bro. I feel like I already talked a lot.
It would be interesting to find out like is anybody actually like filming this that we will have opportunity to like look at where our strengths and where our opportunities are. Do we have like anything like that set up yet?
That and more.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll actually get into that in depth in a minute here. But I'm going to continue on that topic with Alden here. I was curious, have you ever had a chance to grip up with Danny Dowler?
I have not yet, as of now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. This is
It's gonna be a good one for sure.
this is gonna be interesting for sure. Okay. Well, in terms of footage to be able to watch back, we are going to have a documentary put together for this whole thing. I am looking right now to hire 2 camera people for North versus South too. So I want really good footage. I won't be able to pay a lot, you know, hopefully people that are really into the sport locally and really want to support what's going on will be willing to do it for, you know, at least your gas money, some food, you know, might help with your hotel room or something like that. But I am willing to pay a little bit to get a couple good camera people out there that can put their footage on a flash drive for me, give it to me. And I'm actually, with some help, making a documentary on North versus South too. The general format of it, I've explained it on the show before, but I'll just briefly touch on it. It's going to be a community built and kind of independent type documentary. So we're doing a lot of lead up filming. Josh and I are filming a lot of the people that are competing, including the super matches and the featherweight round robin. Getting little bits of background video journaling footage, telling a story, learning about each of the competitors, their training process, and all kinds of footage that's leading up to this event. All of that's going to be super lo-fi stuff shot with each other's cell phones and stuff like that. I'm going to chop it up real nice though and make it look and sound good.
Hey, if you run into any financial issues on getting those cameras, I'd be super willing to chip in. I'm sure that a lot of people in the community would as well. Like, no problem. So yeah, you tell us what you
Good to
need.
know. Great, great. Yeah, we're thinking there's going to be 2 tables for the whole thing. I might hire a third camera person. I know I want at least constant coverage on both tables. I really like what the camera people were doing at this last UAL. You know, they were getting really good dynamic footage of each competitor as they were coming to the table. Really cool intimate footage as they were leaving the table after their win or their loss. And so I kind of want that happening, and possibly one floater camera going around the whole event. Maybe interacting a little bit with some of the crowd, but just getting some more broad footage. But the documentary is basically going to be a lot of storytelling with different competitors leading up to this pinnacle moment where we have the higher quality footage that'll be chopped up as well. It'll probably bounce back and forth between the two and create some tension. We're going to be looking at all the footage that we get from the video journaling leading up and storytelling, and kind of put that together side by side in the editing process with what the actual outcomes are in this event, and see what kind of interesting stories we can piece together and showcase as a whole. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Josh and I also decided we're going to make an original score for it rather than just getting some cheesy public domain music and stuff like that. We're going to go to town. Josh is going to come down here for a few days when I'm at that phase of post-production, and we're going to lay down some gnarly little moods during different parts, guitar, drums. We'll make it all happen. We'll really do a cool original score for that. So it's gonna be exciting. I'm looking forward to doing it. But anybody that wants to help, let me know. Anybody that wants to be a camera person, let me know. I'll kind of be interested to see some of your work and everything, and we'll see where to go from there. Another thing that you mentioned, Corey, was people chipping in for this. I also want to update what's going on with the California sponsorship of a California athlete. So we've been trying to put together this plan to, as a community, sponsor 2 California arm wrestlers to be able to go out of state and compete at an event of their choosing. And if we don't have the sponsors in quite yet, that's fine. We're going to do it ourselves, because I believe that is also a good investment to leading to said sponsors and such down the road. We need to get more of our potentials that are putting in the hard work and support them. We need to support our champions, get them out of state to compete. And I don't think it would be that difficult if everybody chipped in. So where we're at with that right now is creating the nomination list, which will be voted on. I was hoping to have that nomination list ready by this week. Might take one more week. It might take another day or two. Not sure. I've got so basically the team heads, every team head, team leader, coach in California is giving Josh and I 2 names. Okay. And those 2 names consist of one person from their own team and then one person from the opposing side of the state. Could be anybody. So if that team captain is somebody in the South and Southern California, they're going to be thinking of who they think deserves it in the North. That other name is also going to be the opportunity to choose somebody that might not, consider themselves on a team. We do have arm wrestlers like that are really good and are putting in the hard work. We've got Blanca Vega. She floats around a lot of different teams. We've got Martin Kemp. He's still, I believe, a California resident, but I think he's been out there in Australia for a while. But, I don't see any reason why anybody couldn't put his name out there. And that also brings up another point, is the criteria for this. All of the team leaders have been informed of kind of what the general criteria is. It is not to get our Vrej and send him out of state. It's not to get our Dallas Langston and send him, or Derek Smith and send him out of state. The people that it is excluding to be considered are those who are already seasoned high-level pros that don't have any trouble getting, financial opportunities to pull out of state, do interesting things like Arm Wars and stuff like that. It's people that are putting in the work that we don't often get to see pull out of the state. It might be new talent, it might be people that are slipping through the cracks that shouldn't, like Big Alan Hodsey, from the captain of the Orange County team. He's top 5 in the super heavyweights in this state, and that guy is way, way, way undervalued in terms of somebody that should be competing out of state, getting big feature super matches, seeing where he's at on a national level. So yeah, your Will Klingmans, your Chewy Espandolas, there's a lot of names. So I've collected quite a few from different team leaders so far. I'm still waiting for more though. We have a lot of teams, a lot of team leaders in this state. So we want to make sure that we get a good solid list comprised. And when I do have that, I'm putting out a vote along with the GoFundMe. And then the community is basically going to vote on who the final 2 names should be. A couple cool things about it is number one, the starting goal for this is $4,000 for the GoFundMe. 2 arm wrestlers splitting $4,000, so that's $2,000 a piece. Just as a starting goal, I'm confident that we can get more, especially because of the timeline we're doing for this for the GoFundMe. So the winner, it's going to be open. The GoFundMe is going to be open for the next few months, and the 2 winners will be revealed at North versus South. So that gives plenty of time to really, really build that pot. And I don't know, man, it's going to be crazy. I really think we can do it. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to that. So yeah, keep a lookout for that. When we start doing it, we could use any support to share it with as many arm wrestlers as you can. And yeah, just yeah, I want to reveal a lot of the names that are being thrown out there, but it's pretty interesting so far. It's gonna be cool. Oh, this is the other point I wanted to make about it, is just that we're not going to just give these arm wrestlers $2,000 a piece. This, we will be directly paying for their airfare wherever they choose to go, hotel, all of those things, so that it can definitely go to its sole purpose and we can support them in that.
And then just wondering, like, you pay for their airfare and then they keep all their winnings.
Oh yeah, if they go out there
Yeah.
and kill it and win, that, yeah, they're taking that money home,
For sure.
Yeah, and $2,000, that can do a lot. It can pretty much send you at least the competitor themselves to any event in the country. Should be able to handle a round trip airfare, and
Maybe 2 trips.
yeah, it could.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that it could send them overseas for a good event, at least a really big portion of that can make it worth it for them to go give it a shot. So we just had somebody else drop in. We've got a full house tonight. This is Ricky. Ricky, this is first time we have met, and you should be, let me see, Ricky Chavez or Ricky Rivera?
Rivera, Chavez, both my last names, but Rivera is fine.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Okay. Now where do you pull out of, Ricky?
I'm in Petaluma, California.
Oh, nice.
The birthplace of competitive arm wrestling.
Okay. All right. How long have you been arm wrestling there? Since birth?
No, I wish. I'd be a lot stronger, I think. I hope. I think in like mid-May I'll be at my 2-year mark. So almost 2 years. Not quite.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, you have been pulling a little bit longer than a lot of the people that are going to be pulling in this round robin. What do you think about this whole featherweight business? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, I'll be more ready in a couple months. But yeah, I'm definitely ready. I think it's cool that the lower weights are being represented. I think I can probably speak for everyone that it's kind of annoying to always have to compete at 165 when I walk around at like 150, 149, So it'll be nice to see because I mean it's great, it's fun. I like competing, so it's fine, but you never really get to know how strong you really are when you're competing against people that are like, 10 to 20 pounds heavier than you all the time, and usually will also have more experience and whatever else. So taking away one of the variables is nice.
Nice. All right. And so a lot of people like on paper would probably look at guys like Danny and Santino and Brandon Ryan as favorites for this thing. How do you think you stack up with those guys? You think you can pull them in?
I don't know. I've pulled most of them. I think I pulled all of them, so they could probably tell you. I don't know. I think I'll do okay.
Yeah.
Ricky's
Okay,
Ricky's gonna surprise some people.
yeah.
I think he's one of the ones favored to win it.
Really? Okay.
He's gonna surprise some people because he hasn't really competed with a lot of the guys that are ready to go. I've
Yeah.
practiced with him a bunch, so I'm familiar with him. And me and Danny pulled with him, competed at Reno with him, so we have a idea
Right.
of where his level's at, what he's capable of, especially now that it's been like what 6 months since Reno.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Ricky will be a surprise for a lot of guys.
I love it, man. That's why this is going to be so interesting.
Yeah,
There's
Santino is actually one of the first people to, I feel like, really teach me a lot of the things that I still use now. And, obviously with more and more table time, that's really the thing. Like you can be strong, you can be as strong as you want, but you get on a table with an actual referee and suddenly it's this whole different game. So I think that's really where my weakness is, even probably still to this day. But the more table time I get, the more practice I get, the more comfortable I get on a table, in an actual setup with a referee. And I think now that I'm getting more comfortable there, I'm excited to keep seeing how I'm improving in the actual competition. So
awesome. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I can't wait to see this. It's going to be really, really good. There's going to be a lot of uh answers, to things that we just don't know. Very exciting stuff. And speaking of Santino, we are going to be doing some segments, right? Santino on training and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking like, I mean, gosh, we could do anything with this. We could find some cool creative ways to actually get you, in a room with a training table.
Yeah, I was just thinking that like I can just set up my phone because I got tripods, everything, lighting, so I could have it set up in my little shed out there if there's something specific on a table I needed to show or instruct. So yeah, I've already been thinking of things like what could they possibly want to do a segment on? Like I could be like, how would I deliver it? What could I add to it to make it a little bit more entertaining? Things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and I think we should prep each one about a week in advance, uh, because yeah, just to give you a chance to really dissect what you want to cover on that episode. And because the last thing that I want is, well, Josh and I think a lot alike, and I think it was Josh that brought this up about you doing some regular segments. And for me, that was gold. But the biggest reason for me was because like the broad spectrum of things that you were covering last week, it was a lot, and but it was articulated very well to where I think we all got something from it. But I personally want to be able to take something simple, if we're going to do this regularly, and really dissect it, especially for the newer arm wrestlers and everything, to really be able to soak in and understand it. So, if it was just like one episode just on the top roll, that can cover defensive, that can cover offensive, it could cover posting, low hand, whatever, you think you can cover in a single episode for an hour or so, and not have information get lost, with somebody new trying to wrap their head around some of these intricacies and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's like the hook. There's a rabbit hole for that. Hit training ready goes. I think a real exciting one will be the competition prep, how to compete and everything involved with that. We were um, we were talking earlier, and the one thing that for me has always been a shame. So we talked about the population that is very important that doesn't ever want to compete, and they're open about that and they're having fun. That's all fine. But there's also a lot of people who they seem to plan to compete eventually,
Mhm.
but they have this just long investment period of where they like, I have to be ready. Like I'm gonna practice for 2 years,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna keep lifting weights and going to table practice, doing slow pulling or whatever. And then I'm gonna wait to compete when I know I'm gonna show up and blow through everybody or become I don't know. But like yeah, that to me is the most unproductive path that would probably be full of disappointment. It's in those particular areas when I was mentioning earlier of why I think competition is so valuable in terms of education. And it is in progression, but because in a big way, it's totally different, you know. It's just so different. Anybody that's competed a lot will tell you, it doesn't matter who you're pinning in practice. It doesn't matter how good you feel in practice. You're gonna learn a lot of new different things and how to be upset real quick in a competition. And a
Sure.
lot of times you're gonna be pinned before you even engaged what you normally think you're so strong at. You're like, wait, 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 wait. You lost in the setup. You're like,
You get like, well, what just happened? And it's like, wait, I'm getting called up again. Like, I have no idea what's going on. He's trying to
right.
process that last match, and then he's like, well, I got to get ready for this next one.
Yeah.
So I like to call that the Chris Tucker. You guys remember Rush Hour?
Yeah.
I definitely experienced that on the table where, held my first pro tournament. I got my ass kicked. I only made it to top 3 because I beat one guy. And
Yeah.
against Sam Hoffischer, I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
Mhm.
In the 155 in Reno, and David, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce David's last name.
Stepanian.
Yeah, there you go. And I engaged, like, I was already pinned basically, and then I tried
Right.
to, the ref's
Yes.
like, no, it's over. Like, that's
Sam's
it.
fast, dude. Sam's nuts. So those were the two guys that got the wins on you?
Oh yeah, for
Okay.
sure. That
Yeah.
was my first pro tournament.
Mer
Totally got whooped.
Yeah. I've only pulled Sam once. It was in San Diego somewhere. And yeah, it was I'll never forget it because I was only maybe a year or two into the sport. And I don't know, like he probably knew it just by the way I was like carrying myself or something. But as soon as we gripped up in the setup, I was thinking, oh man, I'm confident because I liked how my hand felt with his. He didn't feel like he had this intimidating hand or anything like that. So we're gripping up and I'm like, all right, I got this. And then he kind of leans forward and he says, watch your arm, okay? Watch your arm. And then I was like, oh shit, what's about to happen right now? What's about to happen? Ref says go, and I was like, my hand's on the pad, before I knew it. It was just incredible. And I was kind of glad he said that because even though I knew it was coming, that shit still hurt. Like it hurt.
That happened to me at my first tournament, 154 right at Grinder Gym. There was only 2 people other than myself in the class, and at that point, I've only been to a couple Friday practices, and so I've never really felt anybody within my weight class. It was like 200 and above guys, like Kyle DePew, And then other people from the team, they were all just these big guys, and I was just this little twig in the corner that would like use all my strength to just warm them up. And they're like, yeah, if you really want to get some experience, a tournament's the best place to do it. There's a lot of people going to be there. You get your tournament experience, and then you get to pool with people in your weight class in the after pool. I was like, all right, let's do it. And I didn't even know you're supposed to like pressure up even a little bit. So I was like completely limp fish. Like, I'm going to listen to the ref 100%. If he says my wrist is bent, like carved in, and it's like this, just bend it back a bit more because ref knows what's good. And yeah, I went straight to the pad. But before the ref even said go,
yeah,
he was like, "Are you good?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Okay." It's just I got third place out of 3.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. I feel like a lot of us do it when we're new, when they're like straightening your wrist out, and then you just give them everything. It's like, no, you don't gotta give that much. You don't gotta give that much. We got Grace Bear in the house. What's up, Grace?
What's happening, Grace?
So the nomination list for the California sponsorship is not going to be put out till I collect all the names, but I have to I just want to put this out there. I'll give one name, and I think you're going to know who I'm going to say now. Grace, you have been nominated. And what's really interesting is it was from somebody in the north. So yeah, yeah. Good stuff. I was real happy to see that. So yeah, we'll see how many more we can get. But yeah, congratulations on that, Grace. You definitely deserve it. You're one of the names that will be voted on when we put that out. But that's all I'm gonna divulge at the moment here. Oh, she gave us the smiley, puddly eyes, faces. No, you deserve it, Grace. So yeah, I think we'll wrap this up. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes. I know the buzz is going on. So everybody go jump on over to that when we finish up here. Is there anything else you guys want to cover before we wrap up? Anything you want to take the opportunity to talk about?
Yes.
Yeah, the beginner class. The beginner class I've sent out to 20 people, and I think about 5 or 6 people actually got the confidence about thinking about going to try at Jody's new tournament with new weight classes. And I told them, like, beginner class, everyone is brand new. And I had a whole bunch of people talk to me about it, wanting to know more, send them up the posters. So if you guys could tell people about the beginner classes, try to get their hopes up or just get a little bit more confident saying, I'm not the only one that's brand new. So I feel like that's going to just grow the sport even more and just see a lot more faces through the year.
I'll say this too is if you get your weight classes, you got to show up or it won't be. You guys got to show up. Because I'm in kind of the same weight thing as you guys, or so I understand, because me walking around 75, 76, that's my natural weight. So when I got to go 185, I got to go higher too. So I like it to see a 76 be more local also, because again, that's where I think my lane is better. When I'm up against the 185 guys, I feel like I'm getting some 190 guys that are dropping. And, I see people that I probably shouldn't even see at the table. So, at times. So I think that I understand where everybody's coming from, just so you know. I'm not really just the outcast in the corner over here.
No, you're always important, Don. No, I really like that point. And I do want to add one small thing to that because I think I might have only mentioned it before we started the show. Santino and Corey, I believe, were talking about it. Yeah, Don, that couldn't be further from the truth. this is an important opportunity for everyone to show up. It's an important opportunity to have as many potential competitors as we can for this as well. So the thing I'm not sure I brought up was the general goal for this on the actual show. I don't think I brought it up. Is by 2025, we're hoping that what this achieves is that the big promoters for California events see that there is value now. I know there wasn't before, there wasn't maybe enough featherweight arm wrestlers to create, a class for, but I want to be able to prove in 2024 that we're there. So it starts with this. This is such an important thing for everybody to show up for. And after that top 10 ranking is established in California for the 145s, even if you're not on that ranking, you'll at least know where you are. From that point forward, that's your moment to start calling each other out. Let's get some action going at the arm fest that we do, any mega practices, Mike McGraw's deals that he does out there. I know Matt Silva runs a lot of cool stuff up north as well. Christian does some big combined practices, and Alpha Empire practices are always big. Let's do it. Once you have something to go by, be it on paper and ranking, or just kind of figuring out where you're at, that's when we're going to need to start shaking things up, call people out. Let's start from that point, start moving those rankings. And if we can really keep doing that and show enough attention, I don't see why in this year we can't, in 2024, start seeing some small events that are coming up for the rest of the year saying, screw it, let's do it. Let's do a 145. And then you got to show up to that too. And so this year's a really important investment year for all featherweights. That's all I got to say. Sorry, guys. What else?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo a couple of what everyone's saying. Brandon's saying about the beginner class that, up here in the north, Jody's added that beginner class for, and I'm glad he was sharing it with people that class is being reserved for brand new to the sport. And not just it's your first tournament, because there were some guys that have been training. I've seen at practice for 8 months or so, want to go in the beginner class. That's not what the beginner class is really for. The beginner class is to be for people first time arm wrestling. So that way, they can get a feel for because that would be fun, like your first time and you're actually competing, compared to like the amateur class, which can be intimidating because there are some really good guys there. Also, what Don was saying about, because I've been talking with Jody about these tournaments, like what my ideas and thoughts were, and we were able to convince him to do the 154, 76, 98, and so on and so forth. Like what Don was saying is, now that we have these here, it's important to show up and fill those out, especially when some of these big venues like the Santa Clara Sports Festival or Expo and a couple other ones that haven't been announced yet coming up, that to show up at these venues so we can continue to keep these going. So I wanted to echo that, and also just to mention that next week, Danny's not in here anymore. I was going to ask him, but is the IFA Nationals, which I will be there. I believe Danny's still on there, and a couple other from California, because I'm organizing the team for us to show up there. So far that I know of, it's me, Danny, Tara Terry, Robert Terry, Don McClary, Mark Games, and Randy Weaver. So the 7 of us so far that I know will be there for Team California, and if anyone else is going or someone, that let me know so we can get that, have a big representation of California at nationals. Because if you didn't know, Danny won nationals last year at 138. I've won nationals the last few years at 125. So we're gonna look to continue the streak of having California have a big team and showcase what we got out here.
100%. Awesome. And that's in Ohio, right?
Dayton, Ohio, next weekend, April 6th and 7th.
Okay. Amazing. All right. Oh, okay, guys. I really appreciate you all coming on the show. Ed Bedrosian, who just popped in the chat, thanks for coming by. And Jake Collins just popped in. He asked, did you cut the hair, Santino?
I don't think. Should I let it loose? Nah.
Hair reveal video.
That hair is like
they gotta compete against you to see the long hair in action.
Yeah, I'm
That
always
the long hair gives him power.
it's usually up, but at UAL you had that out like in a
Yeah,
pony
that
or
threw me off
something.
because like the morning I'm just boarding the plane to go. I'm like, where's my clip? I'm like, oh, I forgot my clip. Oh no. So I was like, I'll just change it up. But then someone had an extra one. I was like, okay, back on schedule.
Yeah, you got some pretty long ass hair, man. Okay. Yeah, everybody, thanks for coming in. Ricky, Brandon, Tommy, Dawn, Santino, Corey, Angel, and Alden. Yeah, I appreciate you all. Let's do this again. We will do this again, leading up to North First South. We got a lot of time, so let's just keep boosting that up. And yeah, you all have a wonderful evening. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks for having me, Kane. And
Okay,
congratulations
thanks.
on your baby.
Oh,
See you later.
thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you, Danny, for hanging out too.
Appreciate you all.